Tonight on KPBS Evening Edition, law enforcement at the border say they've reached a breaking point.
With 55,000 families, including 40,000 children, expected to enter the process this month, we are doing everything we can to simply avoid a tragedy.
Border officers urge Congress to change immigration laws as they deal with the surge of migrant families. And National City is sued over the death of Earl McNeil. The new case against the city nearly a year after his death in police custody.
The state of California has listed 15 different communities that fall into the hard-to-count populations.
Making sure California has an accurate count. Hear from one group working to make sure all local communities are included in next year's census.
All we are asking is that landlords allow Section 8 to apply and to evaluate them in the same way as any other applicant.
And removing a barrier to housing, how a new city rule will make it easier for people to use federal rent assistance. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening. It's Wednesday, March 27th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. Border Patrol agents from San Diego may soon be on their way to El Paso. The leader of Customs and Border Protection says more resources are needed to deal with the surge of migrants. Commissioner Kevin McAleenan says staff are stretched thin caring for families that make up a majority of the crossings. He says the agency is at a breaking point and urges Congress to act. Until then, some migrants will be released due to lack of space.
And we are going to be taking steps to support safety in our facilities that are contrary to our enforcement objectives and our mission and culture. For the first time in over a decade, CBP is performing direct releases of migrants when ICE is unable to provide bed space to relieve overcrowding. We're going to be doing this on a risk basis. This is in a limited capacity. It's very reluctantly, but it represents a negative outcome for enforcement. It represents an increase in flows that will follow, and it impacts the morale of our team. But is the only current option we have from a life and safety perspective to try to reduce the overcrowding in our facilities.
CBP expects to detain more than 100,000 migrants in March, the highest one-month total in more than a decade. 750 Border Patrol agents will be reassigned to the El Paso area. Immigration is the key issue behind a legal fight over the 2020 census. The state is suing the Trump administration, arguing a question about citizenship could negatively impact the population count. Earlier this month, a second federal judge blocked an effort by the Trump administration to add the question to the census. California is spending $100 million on census outreach, which includes non-English speaking communities. With the 2020 census count just months away, there's an effort by community organizations brought together by United Way to ensure an accurate population count. An undercount could mean the loss of tens of millions of dollars in federal funding each year. So I'm joined now by Michelle Silverthorne with Count Me 2020. Welcome, Michelle.
Thank you so much.
So what is Count Me 2020?
Count Me 2020 is a coalition of 100+ community organizations and civic groups that have come together to ensure a complete and accurate count for the 2020 census in San Diego and Imperial counties, focusing on the hard-to-reach communities.
And when you say hard-to-reach communities, can you describe why might a community be deemed hard to reach?
Sure. These are communities that you might think of as disenfranchised or traditionally underrepresented. The state of California has listed 15 different communities that fall into the hard-to-count populations. So this is a handful of ethnic groups like Latinos or African Americans, but also 0 to 5-year-olds, seniors, homeless people. And two populations that are really important to think about are those with limited English proficiency, as well as those with low broadband access, because the questionnaire will be presented primarily in an electronic form.
So what's the risk of having an undercount?
That's a really good question. So The state of California has told us that 255,000 individuals are considered hard to count. And we need to ensure that all of these individuals are counted because of federal, state, local funding. And these are for services like schools and roads, but also family stability resources like SNAP and Medicaid. Additionally, it will dictate future congressional seats.
State leaders have spoken out against the recent addition to the census of the question asking whether or not the participant is a citizen. Any concerns about that question appearing?
There are some concerns, but we won't know exactly what will happen. In April, the Supreme Court will hear oral arguments, and then final decisions will be made in June. But regardless if the question is on the questionnaire or not, we will continue to do our work to engage the community and inform them and educate them on why it's important to complete the questionnaire.
And if there's a population of people who say are not citizens and who may express any sort of concern about their information being out there and sharing their information, what do you say to assure people that their information and their privacy is being protected?
Absolutely. So this is a really important question, and I think anyone would be concerned about data, especially in this day and age. By law, this information that's collected on the questionnaire is for statistics and data purposes only. And there are different efforts that are in place now to ensure security and safety of the information. Are you utilizing the internet in any way to help with this message? So we do have a website set up. It's countme2020.org, and we've just launched it, but we will have different resources on the page regarding the census, regarding the importance of taking the questionnaire, as well as activities and events and different ways for volunteers and other individuals to become involved. Michelle Silverthorne with Count Me 2020. Thank you so much. Thank you. Facebook is taking a stronger stand against hate speech on its platforms. Starting next week, Facebook and Instagram will ban the support of white nationalism and white separatism. The company says it spent months debating the new policy. Enforcement will begin next week. Those who search related terms will be redirected to a group called Life After Hate, which helps people leave violent hate groups. It's been 500 years since the Spaniards conquered what is now Mexico. But Mexico's president was in Tijuana today, once again calling for Spain to apologize for crimes against Native people. KPBS border reporter Jean Guerrero tells us how this is drawing strong opinions here in the U.S.
Andrés Manuel López Obrador made history when he won the Mexican presidential elections last year, promising to prioritize the needs of indigenous people and the poor. This week, he asked the Spanish king and the Pope to apologize for mass killings and other destruction against the natives during the conquest in the 1500s.
Es conveniente ofrecer disculpas a los pueblos originarios.
It's appropriate to apologize to Native peoples because there is no doubt that there were abuses.
Andrew Rodriguez is a dual U.S. and Mexican citizen who works at a gas station in Chula Vista. He says the request for an apology from Spain makes no sense.
I think it's just about time we get over it, It happened and it's a long time ago. And
he says it's a distraction from ongoing harms against indigenous people by Mexicans themselves.
The indigenous people need to be seen and heard from within Mexico. There's still a lot of racism and against indigenous people by Mexican nationals themselves, me not being one of them.
Roberto Hernandez is a Chicano studies professor at San Diego State University and author of Coloniality of the U.S.-Mexico Border. He says the president of Mexico has supported industrial projects opposed by indigenous groups and that have been linked to the killings of activists, such as Samir Flores last month.
What he's doing on the ground now with regards to indigenous communities is actually quite devastating.
Still, many people think it's appropriate to acknowledge the horrors of the past. But Spain says it doesn't intend to apologize. The Pope has previously apologized for crimes against natives. Jean Guerrero, KPBS News.
During his press conference in Tijuana today, Mexico's president said he's going to wait for tempers to cool to see if Spain changes its mind about apologizing.
I'm Judy Woodruff. Tonight on the NewsHour, safety in the skies. The FAA and Boeing face new questions after 2 deadly crashes. Coming up at 7 after Evening Edition on KPBS.
Relatives of Earl McNeil are suing National City, the former police chief, and several officers. McNeil died last year after an encounter with National City Police. He was detained for several hours in a restrictive device called a wrap. He stopped breathing and died of brain damage. The lawsuit accuses the city and others of excessive force and failing to provide proper medical care. The district attorney's office decided no one involved in McNeil's arrest will face any criminal charges. The county is moving forward with plans to build a new mental health facility. Supervisors voted today to begin work on a site in Hillcrest near the UC San Diego Medical Center. The county owns the land, but the building has been vacant for nearly 10 years. Supervisors hope to turn the building into a large-scale center that will offer a variety of mental health services. San Diego is spending more on homeless services without clearly tracking the impact. That was the finding of a new taxpayer survey. KPBS reporter Priya Sridhar has more on the results.
Countywide spending on homeless services increased by more than 2,000% between 2009 and 2018, according to a new report by the San Diego Taxpayers Educational Foundation. The foundation is part of the San Diego County Taxpayers Association, a fiscally conservative nonprofit. The group found each of the county's jurisdictions does a poor job of tracking homelessness data points like use of homeless services. Haney Hong is president and CEO of the group.
It's really vital that if we're going to try to have impactful interventions in homelessness, we have to really understand the nuances in the problem.
The report also found that there was inconsistent tracking of homeless residents throughout the county. Priya Sridhar, KPBS News.
The mayor's office responded to the report, saying there's no easy answer to ending homelessness, but doing nothing is not an option. And the programs that the city has put in place are making a difference. Local renters can wait up to 10 years to get into the federal Section 8 program. And when they do, landlords don't always have to accept the subsidy as a form of payment. KPBS reporter Taryn Minto says a new city rule is giving families hope.
This is my home. Welcome to my home.
Jacquelina Hernandez Romero shows off her 2-bedroom apartment in North Park. The wide front room is covered in a worn brown carpet, but it's well lit by the sun coming through the vertical blinds.
Is roomy, as to us it is.
Us includes her mom and husband, and this week her son and 2 grandkids are visiting from out of town.
The spider went to sleep. The end.
The apartment fits her family just fine, but the $1,500 a month rent is tough on her budget. She says disability insurance for her mom and husband brings in less than $2,000 a month.
I go, God, this is what we have for the rent. This is what we have left over for food. This is what we have for bills. This is it.
So it was a life-changing moment when she learned she'd receive a rental voucher of more than $600 a month.
October 19th of 2018. Yes!
Hernandez Romero also had a voucher back in 2006, but gave it up because her complex had a no-voucher policy. That's changing under a new city law.
Our city leaders decided to enact an ordinance that would help remove some of the barriers to housing.
That's Rosalina Spencer with the Legal Aid Society of San Diego. The fair housing attorney is referring to a new ordinance that bars landlords from denying applicants just because they use rental subsidies. Councilwoman Georgette Gomez proposed it in July to help low-income tenants find housing in high-opportunity areas and avoid homelessness.
All we are asking is that landlords allow Section 8 to apply and to evaluate them in the same way as any other applicant.
The law takes effect later this year, but Hernandez Romero needed help now, and Legal Aid Spencer stepped in.
She's all, maybe they don't know the law. Maybe they do not know it. And let's see.
Spencer says Legal Aid has educational sessions to bring landlords up to speed.
The temperature with the landlords is, one, being unaware of this ordinance being passed, being unaware that they're no longer allowed to exclude a certain type of tenant from their applicant pool. And I think there might be a little bit of resistance.
Opponents say voucher programs mean more regulations for property owners, including inspections. The local housing authority says it's streamlining hurdles and has a landlord advisory committee. Still, Spencer says some are complying early, like the complex where Hernandez Romero lives.
And then finally she told me they'll work with you. And I'm all... I went in my bathroom, and as you saw my bathroom, I went in my bathroom and got on my knees. And I asked God, thank you. I said, thank you very much. And I said, bless them for helping us, and bless them for wanting to work with us.
Management company R.A. Snyder told KPBS all of its San Diego properties will follow the law even before it's mandatory. But Hernandez Romero doesn't have the voucher just yet. An inspection found a few things that need fixing.
One of the things that they requested was weather stripping.
Plus a new rug and safety upgrades to the exterior railing. The new carpet was scheduled, but R.A. Snyder says it's still figuring out the railing. A company rep says it wasn't aware that would delay the voucher, but the Housing Commission says safety matters must first be addressed.
Very, very busy.
In the meantime, Hernandez Romero says she is praying that other landlords also give voucher recipients a chance.
That God will soften their hearts. And I'm certainly glad that the R.A. Schneider their hearts were softened, and that they allowed us to say, okay, we'll work with you. We'll work with you.
She plans to use the monthly savings to buy a reliable car. The 1994 vehicle that was donated to her can't make the long drive to visit her grandkids. Taryn Mento, KPBS News.
Violators can be taken to court and forced to pay fines of up to 3 times their unit's monthly rent. MTS wants to redevelop some of its land in a transit-friendly way. KPBS Metro reporter Andrew Bowen says a recent call for ideas is starting to pay off.
Right next to the Palm Avenue trolley station in the South Bay is a giant, mostly empty parking lot. The land is owned by MTS, which would prefer to see it developed into something more useful. The agency's executive committee recently authorized negotiations with 2 developers who want to build low and moderate income housing there. MTS CEO Paul Jablonski says the agency used to focus on market rate housing because it brought in the most money.
But what we found was that doing market rate housing didn't necessarily translate to transit riders. And, transit-oriented development is supposed to, generate transit riders.
MTS is also working on getting new housing built near trolley stations in the East Village and Grantville. Supporters say high-density housing near transit helps relieve San Diego's housing crisis and reduces greenhouse gas emissions. Andrew Bowen, KPBS News.
A lot of baseball fans will be at Petco Park tomorrow to see the Padres season opener. In a moment, we'll hear from sports writer Lee Hacksaw Hamilton on this year's team. But first, Dajia Swad has the forecast for tomorrow's game.
As we continue through this evening, still going to be clouds around. Here's a look at the radar and satellite for the past several hours. To our north is where we had lots of moisture and continue to see unsettled weather due to a low pressure system. Here at home, not really going to be talking about too much in the way of wet weather as we continue into a closer look at San Diego County. Just clouds continue to come across the region. Breaks of sunshine is what we saw throughout the day. And as we continue through tonight, we'll continue to see partly cloudy skies dropping down into the upper 50s here in San Diego. If you're out to Oceanside, a low of 48, 58 in Borrego Springs, and 42 in Mount Laguna, also getting a fair share of cloud cover. Now that changes up as we head into tomorrow, and that's because we see an upper level high pressure off Southern California really build, and that's going to limit any moisture from coming into our area. But as you head to the north, notice it is unsettled. So if you have any travel plans to Sacramento, Reno, it's going to be wet and slippery. But here at home, we're going to watch a warming trend really take place, and that's just in time as we start our baseball season. Opening day for the San Diego Padres playing the Giants. First pitch at 1:10 p.m. Lots of sunshine, sitting in the upper 60s, and not going to be overly breezy here near the coast as you head into the deserts and mountains for tomorrow. Well, we could be talking about some breezy conditions going on. We're looking at a high of 66 in Oceanside, once again upper 60s in San Diego, 81 in Borrego Springs, and 54 from Mount Laguna for tomorrow's high. Into this weekend, still remaining pretty tranquil for Southern California. Nice forecast in place with temperatures temperatures rising a bit above average. Also going to feel that warmth at the coast. So for tomorrow, Friday, still near average, but then we'll go into the 70s Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Inland areas will be into the 80s by the end of the weekend with lots of sunshine. Also going to be feeling that warmer air. Moving into the deserts, nearing 90 degrees by Sunday and Monday. And if you're out to the mountains, coming out of the 50s into the 60s for your extended forecast. Reporting for KPBS News, I'm your AccuWeather meteorologist, Dajia Swad. Back to you.
The day San Diego baseball fans has been waiting for is finally upon us. The San Diego Padres home opener kicks off tomorrow with the 4-day series against the San Francisco Giants. Joining me to help discuss all about the upcoming season is longtime San Diego sports broadcaster Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. Thank you so much for being here.
My pleasure. Are you ready for opening day? Because I think the community is.
I'm ready. So tell me about Manny Machado. That seems to be all anyone's talking about. I believe they got him for, what was it, $300 million?
Yeah, the Padres went into the free agent market like they've never, ever done it before. Everybody in baseball is making a lot of money. There's a lot of money available for player acquisitions. They had never been really a big bidder for a free agent, upper echelon free agent. And they signed him to a $300 million contract, which is stunning. But they had a low payroll. They have so many young players on the roster. They had a lot of budget space to be able to do this. Manny put up unbelievable numbers with the Baltimore Orioles in a really bad situation. Got traded to the Dodgers at the end of the season because Baltimore knew they could not re-sign him. And the Padres jumped in and paid a lot of money. Big-time player, big-time production.
Big-time expectations, too, right?
And we'll have to see if he's got big-time leadership capabilities, because he's never shown that before. But the guy has put up phenomenal numbers as almost a perennial all-star, and he's only 26 years of age. So,
do you think that's changed the mood leading up to the home opener?
We've had so many bad years here in San Diego, and one playoff win in a decade. The fans believe in this ownership. The ownership has poured a lot of money into the farm system. We're starting to see some of the really good young players here. Machado joins Eric Hosmer, Will Myers. They've got only really 3 established veteran players, but he will provide them the impetus to make everybody else in the batting order better. So, yeah, there's a lot of excitement. How good are they going to be? You need a lot of improvement. They were 66 and 96 last season. They were miserable. They could not hit. They did not have pitching. Well, now they got another big bat, and I'm a firm believer Machado makes everybody in the batting order around him, and they got a lot of young pitchers coming. They're not here yet. They're not all here yet.
Yeah, I was about to ask you that pitching does seem to be a real weakness, at least at the moment.
They had the worst starting pitching staff in all of baseball last season. Now they go to the opening series against the Giants tomorrow with 3 really young starters, 1 established starter, and the ability to call up more young pitchers if those young pitchers prove they can pitch at AAA or AA. So the upside of this franchise right now is right there in front of us, which is a lot better than we've had in the rearview mirror.
And you kind of touched on this already, but what else has management done to really rebuild the team?
3 years ago, they made a commitment to do what the Houston Astros, the Chicago Cubs, Tampa Bay, Kansas City did. Poured a lot of money into the farm system. They spent $105 million over the last 3 summers to draft and sign college players, high school players, and then they went into the international market, signed a lot from Latin America and Cuba. Now, it takes time for all those kids to develop, but some of them are starting to arrive, and there's a lot more coming. The Padres have the #1 farm system in all of baseball. That's what they've done differently, which I think has changed the whole chemistry of the franchise, and it's changed the emotional linkage, I think, with our community.
And so I guess the real $1 million question here, or perhaps $300 million question, is the Padres haven't had any postseason luck since, 2006. What are the chances they're going to make it this year?
Well, signing Machado might fast forward the idea that they could be a wild card playoff team. And that's going to be a challenge, though, because in the National League East, you got the Phillies, who just signed Bryce Harper to a massive contract. You got Washington, you got the Mets, who are really good, and you got Atlanta. And in the Central Division, you got the Cubs, who've been a winner, the Cardinals, and then Milwaukee, which has become a great franchise. So there's only 2 wild card spots. So a lot of things have to fall for the Padres to be a wild card team. But anything is better than 66 and 96. If they could get this year to 80 wins. That'd be an accomplishment, because we know a year from today, there are going to be a lot more young pitchers that will be arriving at Petco Park. So the future looks bright. The arrow is definitely pointed up.
The first pitch is at 1:10 tomorrow. Thank you so much for chatting with me.
Play ball. My pleasure.
Here's a recap of tonight's top stories. Customs and Border Protection agents from San Diego may soon be on their way to El Paso. They're among 750 agents who will be reassigned to the area. CBP expects to detain more than 100,000 migrants in March, the highest one-month total in more than a decade. Relatives of Earl McNeil are suing National City, the former police chief, and several officers. McNeil died after being in police custody last year. The lawsuit accuses the city and others of excessive force and failing to provide proper medical care. The district attorney's office decided no one involved will face any criminal charges. County supervisors voted today to begin work on a new mental health facility in Hillcrest. The current location is a vacant building near UC San Diego Medical Center. The county owns the land. The plan is to turn it into a large-scale center that will offer a variety of mental health services. You can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org/evening edition. Thanks for joining us. Have a great night.